Welcome back, everyone, to the Westworld Theorycast. My name is Axel. You can find us on Twitter at Westworld DVR. You can find us on Facebook, Westworld Theorycast group. We have like 98 members, so we're almost to 100. So be the 100th member, and you'll get a surprise of me saying you're the 100th member. We also have email, westworlddvr@gmail.com. That DVR is there because we are part of the DVR podcasting network. We're going to be continuing this podcasting thing. We're not sure really what's up next. It might be a little break and then the leftovers we're definitely doing. Then we're back for Game of Thrones. But I'm also thinking of doing like hopefully Heath and I and Tim and whoever else wants to be involved in this do like kind of a weekly TV rewind, just talk about what we've seen. So I don't know. If you have ideas for us, send us an email. And maybe there's a show out there that is coming back up, and maybe we'll pick that up and start talking about it. But tonight we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 9, The Well-Tempered Clavier, or Clavier. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, which was the penultimate episode in Westworld Season 1. This coming Sunday will be the 90-minute finale. That's right, 90 minutes. So our podcast will have to be about 8 hours long to accommodate that. Well, we're going to do a couple podcasts. We're going to, who knows? I've been thinking about doing an open call reaction to the finale, but I'm not sure yet. Maybe do it on TalkShoe or something. I know, I think Heath is coming back. I'm sure Tim will be back. My friend Arif, who I've spoken of before, Afu, we have talked about doing a podcast where we talk more about the themes and symbolism and philosophy behind Westworld, just kind of limit it more to that. But we'll see. But anyway, I go on and on. Thanks for listening. iTunes reviews. I did want to bring this up. We got like 28 reviews. That's fantastic. If you're listening to the show, give us an iTunes review. It's weird on your iPhone. You have to search the podcast, hit that little search button down on the right, Westworld Theorycast, then it comes up, then you hit reviews, then you hit post a review. I want to try to get to like 50 because then we're going to go dark until the show gets back. We might do an episode here or there if there's some kind of news or something to talk about, special features on a Blu-ray. But this helps us when we get back into it. We'll have a good amount of reviews. Maybe iTunes will feature us. We can get more things going on. So there's that. Thank you everyone who has already given us a review, and we appreciate you just listening. We have a special guest this evening. DJ Tim Hines is with us, of course, but we also have Kim is with us. I put a message on Facebook, said, anybody want to come on the podcast? She said, I got a mic. I'm ready to go. I said, let's do it. Kim, how are you doing?
I am doing very well. Thank you for having me on.
No problemo. So let me ask you, how did you find out about our podcast and Facebook group and all that kind of junk?
Well, actually, I was on the Westworld train a little late. I think I got into it about episode 5. And then I immediately, like any podcast nerd, just got on iTunes, started checking out podcasts. And what I really liked about your podcast is you guys got into the theory. And of course, I like recap podcasts and all, but I just really liked that you delved into the theory mainly. And then, of course, I started searching Facebook and found the group, and that's how I got here.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes. See, look at that. It's just natural stuff. It wasn't even, you're like the first person ever that didn't say, oh, I heard you on Lost. I heard you on Small Council. I love that even so much later. We've been in this game for like near 10 years and still, we do a new podcast and new people can come in. So that's awesome. So, all right, let's jump right into it. Oh, I didn't even let DJ Tim Hines say hello. What up, DJ?
Aloha. Howdy, everybody. That's it. Howdy.
All right, so let's jump right in. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to do like 3 each round robin of theories and thoughts. And so I'm going to dive right into it. Now, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts this week. I've heard some people go back and forth on this. There was a great talk about this that I heard on Shat on TV, who are kind of the new guys on the block taking it over. I like that podcast. I can't remember which dude it was that was talking about it, but I had tweeted at them too, and some other people had asked, what's with the whole scene where Maeve is engulfed in fire with Hector? They're making love. She kicks the thing over, and a lot of people are saying, why are they burning in a fire? Why is that the way to go? And then I heard people arguing, well, did she turn up his pain threshold and all this? I just want to settle this. I think it is 100% because she needs a total rebuild. She's got to get that C4 explosive out of her C6 vertebrae. And the only way to necessitate a total rebuild, basically taking out her positronic brain, putting it into some new body, which I would think would look like her, is to do that. You have to burn the whole body up. So that's what'll be left. And she'll be able to get, she's probably already run some kind of program when she was in the lab to make sure that they build her without the bomb, and maybe Hector too. Maybe a bunch of new ones will be built without the bomb. But I just wanted to bring that up. What do you think about that, Kim?
Actually, I was actually listening to the same podcast and was kind of yelling that at that. I love that podcast too, but there was a few podcasts that were just wondering, wouldn't there be a less painful way to go? And I was just thinking, oh my goodness, it's because of this. So I'm glad you brought that up. Cool. You know, another point I had with Maeve that is kind of a deviation from that, but I wanted to bring that up since we were talking about Maeve, is that I'm thinking with her storyline, how now I'm trying to figure out with our timelines, because we now have the confirmation that we are in different timelines, that now I don't see her at all at the beginning of the timelines where William exists. However, I've seen her exist where Clementine actually is around. I know, because she was in the room with William. So I'm trying to figure out if Men in Black, because I'm pretty sure that Men in Black is William. I'm not sure why people are still trying to figure out if he's Logan or not. Doesn't make any sense. So I'm just trying to figure out if Man in Black, and he runs into the story he made where he kills her and her child. He sees that her cornerstone is what keeps her alive after he, of course, stabs her and she goes running out and sees she's alive. I'm wondering if that's the point, after all this time he's been coming back to the park, he realizes this could be the key to waking up the love of his life, Dolores. And this is why he's been dragging this woman into the barn and not actually raping her, but possibly opening her up to see how far she has progressed over these years, to see how closer to human and sentient she's become. So that's what I'm thinking, because I think Maeve is a newer creation, because I did not see her in the old timelines, but somehow this ties in when he sees her. She doesn't exactly just die and get ready to go rebuild, but she kind of stays.
Tim, what do you think about the burning up to be to move on, and then we'll get into what Kim said.
Well,
sorry about that.
That's all right. I think that she's right on line with pretty much how I'm thinking, that Maeve definitely is a newer model, because we said MIB, if we believe his story, is that his wife died a year ago, and his first reaction was to go hog wild, and he killed Maeve. Now, I believe that was the beginning of Maeve's storyline when she was built. And then when you see the Bernard flashbacks of going into his memory banks, one of the conversations is him and Ford talking about when Maeve stabbed herself. So I feel like they rebuilt her with a different story, and that's her probably one of her only big memories to go back to. Now, as far as the fire part of it, I feel like that's now the next part after that's like I feel like that's the current present time. And where she's with Hector, I don't think that they're going to burn in there. I feel like they're in there. It was like a sexual scene. And no, I really do. I don't think they're going to burn. I think they're going to walk out of there because at one point it was the angle of the camera was from outside of the opening of the tent, and then she kicks it and it engulfs that inside. But then at the end, it kind of went on the outside. I feel like something's going to happen. They're going to move. Possibly, I even thought maybe she burns her flesh off and Hector's flesh off to get another vertebrae to swap parts. I'm not, that's like wild stuff. But I don't think they're going to burn. So I can't really go past anything like that.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. I'm glad you thought differently. I just think definitely that's what I thought definitely is that she keeps on talking about needing a total rebuild and that the way to do that is to burn herself up. But if you don't think so, because I've heard there's another idea that's like she's trying to make a fire or distraction. I heard on another podcast or something, and I just kept on, like Kim was saying, I was like, nah, they need the total rebuild. But if you can see that too, it just goes to show how different you can see. As far as what you had brought up, Kim, I may be wrong about this. It may have been Clementine, but I thought that when Dolores was flashing back like 35 years ago, or I have another question about that if we're talking about the actual right times, but to when they were teaching them to dance, didn't one of the instructors, employees say, Maeve, stay with your partner?
She did.
So, good point.
So I think that Maeve is an original. That's why I'm stricken to this point as to whether or not Ford knows what's going on with Maeve or he doesn't know what's going on with Maeve. So this whole idea that you guys were talking about in some way that she's newer or that, I'm not even quite sure that was her, that was not her I don't know if that was her cornerstone as much as it was a reflection of her becoming more sentient and further awakened by the reveries. Because the cornerstone is something that Ford creates, that the storytellers create. And that was an event that was created by the park. So I think more so it shows that the hosts are reacting to the trauma in the park, not the fake trauma that Ford is feeding into them. But, okay, so I had my turn. I think we're going to give Kim her turn with the Maeve thing. So DJ, what do you want to bring up?
All right. I want to bring up pain. It's very interesting in this show. It's talked about a lot, and it seems to be very intriguing that, like, if you I started looking at it from different angles. As we're progressing through the show, it was brought up that I believe Bernard had a conversation with Ford a couple episodes back about pain and comparing humans. And, he says, why would that make me any different? Pain is just a program and it's, a sensory thing going to a human's brain, similar to what a robot would interpret if it was programmed that way. So now I'm following the pain thing. This episode, we have a whole conversation with Dolores. She brings up pain. And with Bernard, when she's talking to her, she talks about the pain. He says, what did you find? She said, all I found was pain and terror. Bernard brings up pain. And even Maeve brings up pain. I believe she enhanced it or she lowered it. I forget how it was, but she said she had too much when the men came around. So I believe she lowered it. But that seems like the only solid emotion that makes these hosts feel real. And all the backstories all have to do with heartache and pain, and to reset them. They're what do we call it?
Their cornerstone?
Their cornerstone, correct. They're all related to pain, so that they start off with this feeling. And that's the only, I believe, true feeling that they know right now. And I think that the pain is going to be something that they're going to seek or latch onto. It just, I don't know how to really get it out, but they keep bringing it up so much. And I just want to see if you guys noticed anything that, or you even picked up on any of that.
Kim, what do you think?
I think that's correct, and it kind of actually mirrors what makes them more human. Because if you think about it, almost what makes a human feel more real is when you start to experience pain and can kind of measure that. Because if everything was joyful, you wouldn't really know if you're really living, because you wouldn't really know how to cherish anything if you didn't feel loss. So I think that kind of goes with how Ford is trying to make them, and it seems to me Ford is trying to make them a little more close to. So I think that's a big theme that we should keep an eye on, because even Dolores talks about how she's in so much pain. And so, I mean, you hear a lot of the hosts talking about pain, especially Dolores, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, that is such a. It's interesting because that is. I was saying that RF was going to come on the show. He's going to come over and play. He's going to come on the show next week, and one of the things that we were talking about is how Ford, in a way, it kind of represents the religions of Abraham, the people of the book, Christians, Muslims, Jews, who in a sense, God is this kind of all-knowing, all-seeing figure who has the ability to take your pain away. You know, I grew up Catholic, and one of the things you say is, Jesus take away the sins of the world, right? And in Ford's world too, there is that idea of this. There is this original sin, and that original sin seems to be when Dolores woke up, and that has caused him to strengthen his grip on the host, where at the same time feeling as though he is some god to them, that, and they are greater almost, right? They can be greater than us because he can take their pain away, but they can only be great with him, right? Like if they obey him. And that is where that pain and suffering comes through. Now, myself, having grown up Catholic, but then I'm a Buddhist at this point in my life, there's the idea that life is suffering, and pain and suffering is the state in which all humans exist, because we are really creatures of love, and hate and evil and these things only exist in the absence of understanding and enlightenment. And it seems to me that that is kind of what they're trying to get at with Arnold. But there is a catch there too. It's not as though one is good and one is bad. I don't think so. Because in the end, Arnold is unable to give what Ford can give, which is that he can't free them. They have to free themselves, but they are hosts, and he has to guide them. And then it seems like the pain is so overwhelming, and this is what Ford says to him in the lab there, that they wouldn't greet Bernard as some savior or something, that he would be seen as the captor, all that he's done to them. You know, so it's kind of like a catch-22.
He's guilting him.
Yeah, he's guilting him, but
and it would probably wouldn't even be true.
Well, I don't know about that, because is that what we're going to see? Are we going to see that Dolores, that the conversation she had there with Bernard, or the program, whatever she was talking to in that basement in her head or in the past, maybe, you know, I mean, I think you and I were talking about, I don't know what you think, Kim, but that conversation where she says Arnold, and he says and she says she killed him, it seems as though she's talking to the program of Arnold that still exists. I think we all three think that. Don't you think that, Kim, that Arnold at this point is a program?
Yeah, I think he's a program. I also think at this point that Arnold may still be in existence somewhere. His consciousness is somewhere. Maybe even Ford doesn't know where it's at.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk more about that, but let me just finish. Let me just cap off what you were saying about the pain thing, Tim. Is that I do think that is so vitally important to the motivations, and I do think that's going to be the motivation behind Dolores, in that Arnold can't give that to her, and she's like, because the methodology he used was almost to portray himself as a god and these voices in their head. So I think that it's hard for Dolores is kind of like enlightened to the point where nothing matters anymore. That if she doesn't matter and this is all, there is no escape and this is all just pain and suffering, then let's just kill them all.
Well, all right. Now, let me throw in a few quotes that I wrote down from the episode having to do with this. Bernard says in one of the first things after he flashes back and talking to Ford, a little trauma can be illuminating. Then Ford starts talking about humanity in one of the next sequences you see. He's talking about humanity is a foul, pestilent corruption. And it's almost as like he had a distaste of something. But when he describes in the later scene about when Bernard says, Arnold really built me, he says Arnold was the one who was seeking the consciousness. And it almost feels that like Ford wanted to build the fun part of the park because outside somehow sucked. He said, we killed everything.
Yeah.
So maybe the part Arnold built was the part that had pain, and Ford just keeps taking it away because he doesn't want them to have that. And Arnold knew that that's the key to awakening, is feeling pain. Even Bernard, when he's hugging the kid, says, this is what does he say? I long for this pain. There's a reason, like, they crave it. They don't feel love, it seems. They know how to have sex and they know how to, sweet talk someone. But how do you program love when I guess pain might be an easier thing to program? I'm just taking a wild guess there.
That's some deep shit, DJ.
Yeah, I mean, let's, that'd be great to talk with Arif and stuff. And that, I like that. We could really get in heavy on that.
Yeah, no, it's a very vital point, definitely. Kim, it's your turn.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about now that we were discussing Arnold, I'm not so sure that we should be altogether convinced that Dolores killed Arnold. I know she said it, obviously. However, I'm starting to think we shouldn't always be altogether sure that the hosts have correct memories or any of this stuff, because they can be programmed a certain way. So we are seeing most of this show from the host's vantage point. Can't always take them as reliable narrators because, of course, Ford is making a lot of their storylines. So
I think I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's a great point. No. So what do you think? What would be? Is that creating just another fake cornerstone? And you think maybe Ford killed Arnold?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it could still be Occam's razor because, it's handy, and Dolores could have just gone insane and shot up the whole entire town and then shot herself. And and it included Arnold. But at the same time, there was also some theories I was hearing that this is also possibly a way that as the host became more sentient, that closer than they got to the maze, this was something that stopped them from getting too close. That because another thing I was noticing with Teddy and Angela, and Teddy started to realize, he's when Angela said no, you, and he's like, no, I didn't. She's like, oh, yes, you did. And suddenly he remembers. Yeah. It's starting to look like maybe some of these hosts are starting to. And it's like, wait a minute, they're starting to remember things very strangely, and I'm wondering if they have something put in their head that is keeping them from realizing something puts them in their stop them that says maybe they were a part of the destruction of this town that was buried, and that stops them short. So I'm not altogether sure if what we got in episode 9 is actually the complete answer, but I could be wrong.
I think that's a fascinating idea. You're right, because that is very interesting when Angela said, that's her name, right? Angela?
I think so.
Okay.
Or, ex-Elon Musk, Miss Elon Musk. I don't know. I think it's Angela, though.
Okay, so when Angela talks to Teddy, right? And then I've heard some people say, was she rewriting his narrative? But it's like maybe, but it's almost... See, that's where I just think, how deep is Ford manipulating all this? And that's why I like your idea that this, it's almost like that gun, that, I don't know, bludgeoning, whatever you're going to call it, that massacre that seems to have been taken place with Teddy and Dolores too, is blocking them in some way, right? Is like Bernard's kid or whatever. It stops him from going deeper and understanding what really happened, and maybe just that never happened, or maybe that was a way, because it seems like that town was so idyllic, and maybe this was at the point where they had all those nice stories, and maybe this was the first time they did the bad stories, because even the way that people are reacting it seemed more passionate than when they're running away in the streets of Sweetwater or whatever,
Yeah.
They seem more shocked and surprised. Then I had the idea that maybe the reason why Teddy was involved is because Dolores kind of maved him and was like, we've got to kill everyone and take everyone out. And then she kills herself, and maybe Teddy kills him. Maybe she kills him or something. But the idea that all never happened is an intriguing one. And the idea that, she didn't kill Arnold either. And these are all just lies to keep them from seeing the truth, is something that we have to accept, because they've done that to us the whole season. What do you think, DJ?
It's real hard to confirm without knowing which part of the time frame we're in, because when Ford says he's introducing Wyatt, it doesn't seem like that new time frame where he's talking about the new narrative he wants to build, something that won't be a retrospective. So I'm thinking the Wyatt thing might be a little bit earlier than the current timeline, because it's very strange how Angela, which actually is her name, very, very awesome, Kim, if you know that, she has that ability, like she slices Ford and then hooks him up to that thing where he could have possibly got killed by, with the horse, if the horse ran away. And she speaks so differently than everybody else. Like, she's almost unlocked, possibly by Ford, to mess with the narrative, to really mess with MIB, to kind of get him out of the way without really getting him out of the way. But if MIB was really such a threat to Ford, he's shown us that he's killed 2 people so far. So why would MIB be so different? And is it almost like a game for Ford that he wants MIB to get to the spot? and it makes it seem like maybe those things that Angela did to MIB weren't actually going to hurt him, because they did go. Logan said previously that you can get a little roughed up, but you're never going to like get seriously hurt. And the knife face cut, apparently we saw that thing that could heal the face or heal the wounds. So I guess that's not really too big a deal. So I don't know if she's broken, or if, or like with a different code, or if she's actually doing what she's supposed to be doing. So it's real hard to tell with her. But the Teddy thing, when she tells him, well, no, that really wasn't how it was. Is it, I thought, is it possible that Teddy did both of those timelines? Or he was wrote over to believe that was a possible timeline and she unlocked the real one. But if she was able to do that, she has to be awakened in some way. It's very cool to know all that, but I feel like that stuff will be revealed possibly at the end of the finale, or maybe even go into next season, because they even had that in the background lurking was Wyatt's guy with the mask and the horn on it, which we don't even really know if it's a guy, because it was like grunting and stuff. It didn't say anything. So it and then they were gone. So like, did Ford come up and grab them? It's a whole weird dynamic. Like, where did they go?
You bring something up interesting too, dude. They were like taking apart the other hosts and stuff like that, almost like scavenging parts from them. I don't. Okay, well, before we go too deep into that, what did you think about Kim's initial idea that Dolores did not kill Arnold?
It's plausible. I mean, I could almost, really accept anybody's, outlook, because there's so many loose ends in the show that the writers could listen to this podcast and be like, that's great, Kim, and then write that next week. Like, it's really like it's so many avenues to go that could be. And maybe, Arnold is using that guilt again, the pain feeling, to say that to Dolores so that she feels bad.
That's an interesting idea, that it's not Ford that's manipulating. It's actually Arnold is manipulating her still.
Well, I do believe that Arnold is escaped from a Bernard body. And I'm not sure if Arnold originally looked like Bernard, but whoever his image is, which I think his image talking to her at the end of last episode, I'm sorry, at this episode when she said, I killed you, that is, to me, certainly code, because he was, we'll get into this later, but he was dressed like a completely different thing. He kind of talked a little more fluid, and it was similar to those voices. Like, it wasn't like something we would feel Ford would program in. So I feel like he's using, and when Ford awakened him in the scene, we see Bernard's his first vision when he says, wake up. And he says, welcome back, my friend, which I'm going to assume is to comfort Bernard coming into the world. And then he says, we made you the way we wanted. So they obviously teamed up to make him. So possibly.
No, dude, no. I think it's pretty plain that Bernard, okay, so you're saying that, okay, in the show, Ford said that he made Bernard years later in the likeness of Arnold. Mm-hmm. So he said, we made you. But I think as he said, I think because I saw another podcast, I saw something on Reddit about that. I think the we is more likely to be saying, we made you, as in, we made this park, these robots, you. Yes, I made you because Arnold was already dead, but I used his code and he lives on in this, in everything that is made. I don't think, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's lying. It seems to me that you're having a different translation of the show rather than theorizing that Ford is lying about that.
I can't fully get on board with anything right now because it's just there's too many loose ends and it could go anyway. And until they put us in like a concrete foundation a little bit, which I'm thinking will probably happen towards the end of next season, that like we'll actually then be able to delve deeper into the heaviness of AI and what the implications of them being in the world and consciousness like really taking over. I think right now we're just getting like juicy tidbits, and I can't lock on to anything. I want to believe that we're all on the same page, and I feel that it's right with the time frames, but there's still a possibility inside of me that thinks that that might not be. So I watch it with like a full open mind. I don't watch it with like saying, yes, yep, that's exactly it. And look at that that proved that, because it's still, nothing is really solid proof.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
I love this show, man.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to your point, Kim?
Actually, I just want to comment on what he just said. But the only way I can get on board with that sort of thing, with the we part, is if for some strange reason Arnold was like, okay, I love my creation so much that I would love to become a host, and for some strange reason it failed, and I don't know how they would contain Arnold's consciousness for so long, because I mean it's like the Bernard was built like forever after his death. And finally, somehow, Ford was able to get his consciousness into this, and then all of a sudden Arnold's like, oh crap, this sucks, because I did not realize how much Ford was going to be able to control me. And then Arnold's forever trying to get out of this whole Bernard thing because he's being controlled, and he did not have a clue how crappy it was going to be a host version of himself, because he doesn't have as much control. So that's about the only way I can get on board with that one, but I don't know if I would exactly enjoy this show if it was really Arnold was like, I love my host so much, please kill me. And put me in one.
Hey, but check this out. I think that's an interesting idea, Kim, because you could, this is the Theorycast, so we're going down the rabbit hole. Could it be that in some way, because look, we see Ford at so many different times. Okay, so far we've seen like the old like CGI guy. He's running down the hall with Dolores. Then when he wakes Bernard up, he looks older. And then in the present day, he's how he is natural, which I say Anthony Hopkins is like 78, 79 years old. So 30 years ago would have been when he was like around 50. And he looks to be a little bit younger than that when he's walking past Dolores down the hall, and we have been led to believe that Arnold died like 34 years ago, and then William came along like 30 years ago, and then we have the present time. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get too crazy and start saying, hey, really the park has been open a lot longer, because then some people say, no, they said it was only, I put something on Reddit about that, and they're like, no, they said the park was only open like 40 something years ago. That was within the 3 years of when he was, when the park wasn't open and they were just building everyone. So could it be, I'm just supposing after that long rant, to take your idea, which I think is kind of interesting actually, that they always had that plan. That was something that maybe that's the thing that Ford is really talking about. He's not talking about the host. He's talking about the transference of consciousness, which so many people have thought it will become a part of this show. And when Arnold died at the hands of Dolores or whatever, he did awaken, and it was Bernard, but Ford decided not to let him be Arnold because he didn't want it to happen again. So he put another layer of programming over it to hide it, and he really is Arnold's consciousness. And then when he wakes up, this is the result. So, okay, that was a little bit crazy.
No, that goes well with her thing. Like, I was actually thinking there's a possibility that they didn't have the right tech yet when Arnold died, and somehow maybe like Ford was able to get his consciousness on a hard disk somewhere. And no, I'm just like that. It could have escaped into the code, and it got lost or trapped in the system somehow. And he's been watching Ford, knowing how he is, watched him build Bernard, and there's a possibility that he's been waiting to get into Bernard.
Yeah.
Now that gets blown out of the water with Bernard putting a gun to his head if he doesn't get rebuilt. Blown. Yeah, it's just this is Theorycast, so we put it out there.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, can I just let's just do a quick round robin, and then I think it's like Tim's turn after this, but just really quick because you mentioned it, without too much detail now. Is that the end of Jeffrey Wright on this show? Is Bernard Arnold? We're not going to see him anymore. Tim, yes or no?
No, absolutely not. He'll be back.
Okay. Kim?
Oh, he'll be back.
Okay. I say the same thing. I say he'll be back. Maybe not as Bernard. Maybe as Arnold. Maybe as Bernard. Maybe as Arnold Bernard.
as Weber.
Maybe as Weber. Maybe as Low Weber. Weber Lowe. That doesn't sound right. If he came back as a guy named Weber Lowe, he'd have like a Izod shirt on and his collar up, like with some boot shoes or whatever those are called. All right,
awful.
DJ Tim Hines, do you have something you want to hit us with?
All right, I got two things. The first thing is something that really we don't need to discuss. I just want to bring up that something I kind of would like to know. It's a silly thing, but I want confirmation on how the Wonka Vader works. And like, we kind of saw it with Helmsworth going up, and then you see like that train moving thing, like fly by. And I'm like, how does this work? I want to know. And then Maeve pops up right behind Hector. I'm like, what the F? Like, I need to know this. It's so OCD, but I need to know what that is. Because that would help me also put things into place, like how people pop up everywhere and how big this place is and how the hell they can get, if it's many miles, they're right there. It's just kind of crazy. All right. But that being said, Hemsworth. All right. Did you guys find it so annoyingly stupid, like a horror film, when he's like, oh, she's out there? All right, I'll go check it out. And he's by himself. When the last time they went out with like a whole squad with like machine guns in the first and second episode. And then he goes out with what was the girl's name?
Elsie?
Elsie. He goes out with Elsie the second time and then she goes out by herself. And now he's by himself. Like really? Like, I don't know. I found that like to be super cheesy. And if you didn't or did find it cheesy, which I'd like to know, who got him, and what do you think the purpose of that was?
What do you think, Kim?
Well, if I recall, like there was the time where I don't know if they were in the super amazing elevator thingy, but when he was with Elsie and she made a point about the gun he was carrying, did he not have it in the scene where he's out there looking for her?
No, he did. He pointed the gun, but the guy jumped from the other side.
Oh, okay. So I was like, why didn't you just pull that up? But that scene was really weird because I'm wondering who these weird creatures are that came after him. And I think I'm thinking maybe Elsie is not dead.
Well, it's definitely Ghost Nation. That was the guys that were attacking him.
Yeah. But I also, nobody hasn't watched American Horror Story is not going to get this, but I really wanted him to start yelling Croatoan at them and see if it would have worked.
I never watched it.
Okay. Never mind.
It is. I like your idea that Elsie isn't dead, and I heard that on some podcast, I think, or I thought that was an interesting idea. Not that you took that from a podcast, but I'm just saying that that idea is out there that maybe she reprogrammed them to kind of grab him and not respond or something. Yeah. But maybe it's Ford cleaning up. Maybe it's, I've been saying all along about Arnold being this, lost in this system. that maybe he's manipulating the narrative too. And that's why I don't know what to trust with Angela and Teddy and Wyatt and all that. And even the maze popping up. It just, is that all Ford, or is Arnold, the code, the hive mind, somehow manipulating the narrative as well? And he's taking out, but what would be the purpose of taking him out? He got nosy about Bernard, and anything that happens to Bernard, Ford knows about, right? Because he can see it. And he worked with Teresa, right? So, what's the advantage to taking him out? That's why I found that scene to be kind of strange too. That's why I think the scene is more about them than it is about him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
what they're going to be.
Also, the fact, he can't have killed Stubbs, because I'm thinking, how many people can disappear from this place?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just start on a killing spree. They're going to start wondering.
Yeah, unless maybe that was the host being built in the basement, but all that to replace Stubbs? You know what I'm saying? He's the third Hemsworth, for Christ's sake.
And wouldn't it be odd, like, if he's missing and Elsie's on vacation and that, no one else is going to be like...
It was weird. It was. That
entire
point.
Department is just gone.
And it happened so fast. Did you notice that? Like, they just, everything else was heavy, and then they jammed that in fast, 2-minute scene, if that, and then it was off of that. So it was really sprinkled in, just to be I don't know, for us to be maybe next season, holy shit, remember when that happened? Oh, one of those things. I'm not, it was weird.
Yeah, definitely. I like that though, Tim. That's a good catch. And I definitely think that it's more about the Ghost Nation than it is about Hemsworth, but maybe I'm wrong. I thought they were making a Teresa host, and then all of a sudden she's laying on a platter.
Someone has controls though, because they shut off the signal.
Yeah, that's why I like what Kim said. I'm going with what Kim said. I think it's Elsie, because I love Elsie and I want her to be more in the show, and I didn't like her kind of almost dying off screen. I don't consider this weird. That's why maybe Bernard kept on going back to that memory. So could it be that Bernard... Oh, okay. So I'm going to just bust it out. I think it's my turn anyway.
Tinfoil.
That's what I think about these. We're still being played with the time frames and the conversations that we saw with Bernard and Dolores in the secret room. Those conversations could be that was Arnold, but the things that they talk about, maybe she's always been having these conversations in her mind with Arnold, right? None of those were real. It's just part of the maze, and her remembering and all that, or coming in contact with the AI Arnold. But is it possible that those conversations were not so far in the past and they were actually in the present? And it's not MIB messing with her in the barn that set her off on this mission. It's that Bernard, he already knew he was a host, and he was tricking Ford. And this whole game where he had Ford lead him down and tell him, he was kind of baiting Ford into doing that to wake up parts of himself that he couldn't wake up. His back door was Ford. He used him. And that gunshot or whatever, we're going to find out was fake or something like that. And Bernard is going to go and meet up with MIB and Dolores. And that's what I'm saying. That Bernard is awake, and he's Arnold, and he knows it, and he's awake, and we just haven't seen it.
Now, taking that,
and he killed Teresa, but he couldn't stop himself because he's not awake enough yet. Ford still has some control over him.
Oh,
I feel that we're still seeing old time frames, because if you look, I really been observing Bernard's clothes and the tripod, which in a flashback scene was once a biped, and they have all different stuff on, and and that what you're saying like makes a lot of sense. Like it's like we're gonna find out that I think that when the part where Bernard blew his brains out either was a little bit before where he gets a rebuild, and then we're going to see a scene that we didn't really even think was the future related to that, and we might not even like that. We might be off, but we might be off on the timeline thing, like the time frame.
So you're saying in more than just that scene, you think that this. Okay, I want to say that I understand this theory, and this is, I guess we should call this the loop theory. That this same thing has happened so many times before. But I think that can get too tangential. So I just think that it would almost be impossible for them. I don't know. I see where you're coming from, DJ, and it does kind of validate a little bit of what I was saying too. But then invalidating it makes me think that maybe that's a little bit too complicated. You catch that, Kim? Do you see what he's saying?
Yeah. The only thing I can think with, I was kind of getting the feeling that this might not be the first time that, Ford has had to have, Bernard possibly end himself. It almost seems like, maybe Bernard has gotten close to figuring it out, and then maybe Bernard's like, or Ford's like, well, maybe he's closer to being more like Arnold, and he gets disappointed or something. And then maybe this isn't the first time that Bernard has had to end himself.
Let me kind of back that up because I wrote it down. There's one scene, Bernard has no tie. There's another scene, he has no tie, and you see the tripod out. Then you see Bernard with his tie loosened in another scene, and he has the vest and jacket on. Then you see the next the scene inside that cold storage back room. He's got the tripod out, and Bernard is wearing. That's where he's wearing the tie loosened, and in the other one of the other scenes, he has the tie tightened. One of the other scenes, he has no tie on.
Okay, and just hold on one sec. When you say the other scenes, do you mean the scenes when he's with Dolores?
Yeah, right. Well, okay. or his recall scenes with Ford when they're talking about the same thing they're talking about here. Ford says to him in another flashback in the memory portion that he explains to him this whole thing in a memory. It wasn't in that cold storage room that he explained the whole Arnold thing to him. So he told him this story before. He must have wiped him of it. And this, I believe he's trying to tweak it so that he gets Bernard right. And each time he says, Bernard, you even taught me a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of little tweaks. And to top it off, at the end scene, we see when Dolores and Bernard are talking, Bernard has a shiny dress shirt, no tie, and no jacket.
Okay. I'm a little, I have to say myself, just because having worked in the business, but also because having watched all these shows, I'm always skeptical when the clothes variations or names, it makes me a little skeptical. So I dig what you're saying. I'm not exactly on it as far as unloosened ties go. I gotta be honest with you. I love the due diligence, though.
I was just about to say that. I was like, I'm going to hire you for the continuity department in my next short film.
Yeah, it's I like that, but just knowing how often, like Kim says, continuity is, you don't edit. Like no editor is going to edit for continuity. You just don't do it.
HBO. It's not.
I understand. Hey, look, I'm not denying it.
the
DJ,
Nolans. Like,
yeah.
this is big stuff.
No, yeah, I'm not denying you're absolutely right, and you're very right in that there are definitely directors who, and that is very prevalent in film. I mean, there's whole departments for that, and you're absolutely right. But I just question whether or not that would be my points of proof, is what I'm saying. More so, I think the idea holds water within the confines of the way they have been telling this story. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right. I'm trying to say that, like, it's a frame of reference to maybe create the timeline.
Right. I
time
dig
frame.
it. I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah, I think they do it a little more, like, they don't do it as subtly like Dolores. Like, they usually do it pretty, like, she's got the dress all the way to her, like,
The shooting
her
outfit.
pants. And even then, like, you can see with the blood where, you know, she was cut open by Logan. So they usually do something a little more, something you can catch easier.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Some of them not as easy as, like, Dolores in a blue dress. I mean, that's really bold, but you can see some people have difference in uniform.
Right. That's a cool one. Okay, cool. Have we all gone 3 times? Do we just want to kind of open it up? I think we have, or was it? Yeah, I think we have, right?
Yeah, I think we did go.
I'm cool. So,
as far as I remember.
All right. I just want to bring up one correction because you had just mentioned it with Dolores. In the last episode when Tim and I did the initial reaction, I think we were both a little confused, at least I knew I was, as to when I thought that Dolores seeing Man in Black in the church happened, because she comes out and she says to him, William, you know, and I was just like, but wait, that can't be because the church was buried with William, but she's in the other clothes too. So I do think that is the present time. I think that Man in Black heard from Angela, and when Angela and Teddy were talking about Escalante, and she said the city, the buried city.
City Under the Sand.
The City Under the Sand, and he said, I know where that was, and then that's where he took off after he met up with Charlotte. And by the way, I do want to mention, DJ, that the horse is a host too, and it could have led up and not strangled him, but
I know. That's why, like, you know, thinking either way, that's why I said before, like, maybe her cutting him wasn't a breaking of her directive.
Yeah, I know. They've been a little, and I have to say that whole thing has been a little iffy too, but they have said the farther out you get to the park, it can get really extreme, but you're not in real danger.
Right. So that cut might have just been like, all right, we can heal that. Or, you know, the horse might not have ran. Like, it might have pretended to run, then when you're choking, dropped you.
Or you're right, and she's on some different narrative or some different programming.
That's what I mean. I mean, she question everything with this show.
She bashed his head against the rock.
Yeah, that was hard.
Please, can we if the worst, I'm sorry, and you see it in every movie, and to me it's almost become unforgivable. You could bang somebody's head against a rock and they will not pass out. They will just have a really bad headache and you can crack their skull. I hate this shit. They still do it in movies when they knock the heads together.
How do you know this?
I mean,
because I've knocked my head on a fucking rock.
But not the strength that host pushed it into the rock.
Dude, I'm just saying, people do not have a pause knockout button like in movies.
It's crazy.
Well, would you believe her if she, like, just put him in a rear naked choke and then we had to sit there for the entire minute it took for him to pass out?
I know. You're right. I'm being picky.
It's fun though. We love it.
I just want, okay, so we are at about an hour. We want to kind of go into a free for all, and let's just do one thing and then let's get out because we are at, we don't want to take up too much of people's time, and we'll probably end up doing another podcast this week or some, who knows, maybe. I don't know. I like the idea of doing like a talk show call after the finale. I'm going to think about that. But okay, I would like to hear from you guys as succinctly as you can what you think Ford's narrative is and why he's doing it. And I want to start.
Wait, pause.
I said it. Yes.
I know I'm not as highly educated as most, but what does succinctly mean? Like, are we supposed to say it at the same time?
No, succinctly means in a more precise way. We don't have to bring in every aspect of, just kind of like why he's doing it, like succinctly means don't go on for 20 minutes.
Because I speak more in the host format.
Oh, okay. Okay, DJ. DJ Tim Hines listened while Axel spoke. I've just given you your directive. Okay. I still believe that the entire narrative is pushing Dolores, MIB, to this original place, and maybe even Bernard. I don't think Bernard anymore, because I think Ford thinks Bernard is gone. I thought it was Bernard before. But I think, like we were talking about before, I think Ford is trying to bring Arnold back. I think it is. He's totally sentimental. I think he knows that Arnold is trapped somehow in the park, in the system, and he's like this independent AI, and he has been kind of battling with him. But I think that this is Ford's plan all along, and all this Wyatt shit and bringing back the horror of that first massacre is on purpose to awaken the hosts, the originals, and get them back together. And that's what I think. So, Kim, what do you think?
Actually, I was along similar lines. I think, of course, he's going to resurrect, and he's going to try to make the similar narrative of the town. However, I think what he's discounted, I don't think the Man in Black actually possibly figures in. I'm not sure how he was supposed to be part of the plan. But even though he's trying to get Arnold back, I think his whole problem was, especially when he's talking to his robotic version of his son, when he was kind of confused as to Arnold told him to kill the dog, that what he hasn't figured out is that Arnold might actually be already led to some of these original hosts. So he might get a big surprise when he starts the city up and realizes all these hosts, that the original hosts that are rising up, and he's recreating this narrative, are actually going to be his downfall, because Arnold is going to come back, but it's in the form of all these hosts that he had a hand in creating.
Okay. DJ.
All right, this is a little crackpot tinfoil hat out there, but I feel that Ford doesn't know the extent of the Arnold thing. He thinks it's some glitches. I don't think he really even thinks Arnold's still in the programming. And I feel that Ford, when he mentions that to Charlotte, this will not be a retrospective, I think that was the clue that he's trying to build Future World, and that when Dolores talks about the flood is going to come right through that valley, and that he's going to destroy what was there. And there's going to be something that happens because Arnold's around, and there'll be some kind of conflict. But Ford's plan, I feel, is he's building Future World.
Oh, so he's destroying everything.
Oh, that would make more sense if the flood comes through and destroys that town that's been buried. That'd be a lot.
Now I thought of that for a while, and in our group, someone had mentioned the possibility maybe every season is going to be, one of the, like they had Roman World and whatnot. We might see them moving around. That's a little out there, but even my theory's out there, but that's further out there. But I don't know. I just feel like Ford's unhappy with what's happening and the way they're trying to change his stuff, that he's going to wipe it out and start fresh.
That is really interesting. Then you think that MIB and William, he's just a dude, and that whole story is separate from the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you think that all the stuff with Wyatt and all that is just to try to kind of like keep him playing along while he breaks up the new narrative to destroy everything?
See, Wyatt, I can't get into Wyatt yet because I'm still hung up on like 5 different things that the Wyatt storyline could be. So like that's the Wyatt thing is weird. It came out of nowhere, and we don't know Wyatt. We don't know. All we've seen was an image in Teddy's brain, which was a memory. So how could, if Wyatt was new, what the hell is he having memories of all these other things happening? So like Wyatt must have been there for a while. So like that's why I still can't figure out Wyatt. So I can't go into that.
Okay.
That's because Wyatt is Dolores.
Yeah, I do. I think that's true. I think I think it's just a cover for that massacre.
Yeah.
Is this like a transgender then? Like it would be?
No, he decided to make up a story, but you make the best stories are built on truth.
Yeah.
So whoever supposedly killed Arnold, and who in this episode it was told to us it would be Dolores who killed Arnold, which I'm not exactly 100% sure it was. That would make Dolores this Wyatt person. So he just made up Wyatt and based it on the person who killed Arnold.
That's cool. This show's awesome.
And that kind of hides it too, right? It's like a double, like frickin' Inception and stuff, a dream within a dream. Yeah. Like it's not only did she, so to cover that, it's the massacre, and to cover that, it's the Wyatt, and it's just like so confused. So when you think you've uncovered the truth, you've really just uncovered another lie and another way for him to control them.
Are we going to possibly see Wyatt like that doesn't see himself out of Dolores's body? Like he might think it's a man, and he's actually won't come out of Dolores's.
No, it'd be so weird.
Yeah, it could. This show is amazing. I really am serious. Like it could go any way.
I don't think they will. Just uncover that.
I don't either, but it's it just could. Everything's possible.
Yeah. Just like Angela was like, "Oh, you don't remember you shot that guy? Well, sorry, you're wrong. You did." And then all of a sudden he realizes he did.
Yeah,
and then just like, yeah. So
that would be interesting, though, DJ, that you put it that like a weird shot like that. But I don't know. That's it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the reason. I had this theory a while back that MIB is a host and we're going to see William die. And then the reason why Ford is kind of leading him back and Dolores back and all that is because that is where Ford saw the pathway to transfer of consciousness, and he thinks somehow he can either bring Arnold back and then we had talked about, Heath had the idea too about like him extending his life. It's just amazing that we can have so many of these different ideas about this show. And I know there's been some, I've even read more and I've heard a lot of podcasts talking about it, about the whole theory culture. It's a little hard for us to talk about it when the show is called Theorycast. That's what we do. We enjoy it. I don't think it ruins the show because I always just, I guess I had to learn how to watch because I have admitted that there was, some episodes of Game of Thrones last year I was watching too much for the idea and not enough for the show. But I think I learned my lesson. I haven't found that this year with this show. I really do enjoy just watching it. And if I watch, when I usually do a rewatch, that's when I kind of pause it or write something down. And the first time I just watch it all the way through. I don't talk or anything,
It's funny you say that because, Kim, I don't know if you know this, but we both are part of the Small Council podcast. So I used to go by my first viewing with my notebook and then rewatch it for fun. This show I've been, since I wasn't really a part of this until, Heath had to drop out a couple of times, that I was just watching it. And then I started watching it and then taking notes like the last few weeks. So it is a much better experience that way. And I don't think that there's too many theories that are out there because all three of us are watching the same show and we all saying different things and we're all in agreement that they're plausible. So, that's amazing. And, I didn't listen to any podcasts this week. But I can see how some people don't want this. Some people like watching TV and being told by what's the actions on the screen of what is actually happening. They don't want to think about what possibly could happen or, a mystery part of the show. And that's fine. Some people like that. We gravitate towards this kind of show because with Lost, Game of Thrones, this is the stuff we like to think and expand these thoughts. So I can't say that, I'm sick of any theories and I love them. I love hearing wacky stuff and this show leaves it open that it could happen.
Yeah. Well, I did one TV show podcast, and the first watch I always did just for fun because I always knew there could be that possibility, and the second time I would do for notes. But every time I heard in every podcast where everybody's like, it was almost like spoilers, I was just like rolling my eyes. It's like, nobody is forcing a podcast into your ears. 9 episodes in, you should have learned your lesson by now and stopped.
Yeah, I don't agree with the idea that it's spoilers. And I think I mean, look, there are people, I think that there are maybe some critics who get stuff early or some people who pirate or somehow, especially when, or set visits and stuff like that. There are spoilers out there. And then there are some people who craft their theories based on a spoiler. And in Game of Thrones, that's why I really don't go on like the Reddit or anything in Game of Thrones, because they'll bring something back from the first book that they never talked about, and then it'll be in next season. Yeah. And they did that so many times, and it kind of started getting on my nerves when some people would be like, well, they're probably not going to do this, and then they did it. So I kind of got sick of that,
To your credit, though, it's been, like you said, almost a decade of doing podcasts that we know what we even don't want to hear would be a spoiler. We don't, like, even to going into this podcast, I didn't watch the upcoming or listen to any other podcasts because I don't want to be swayed by that. To me, is a spoiler.
You think other podcasts are a spoiler?
No, not the other podcasts. I'm sorry. I'm just saying, like, I didn't listen to them to sway my opinion, but like the previously on. I mean, the preview. That, like, to me, that would, just to see one scene could shift my whole theory.
I agree. I think that people should not. Tim, this is what I agree with, and this is where I said I really like Decoding Westworld with Joanna Robinson and David Chen. I've been enjoying that.
Yeah,
and
I like them.
But I don't listen to their Game of Thrones podcast anymore. And the reason why is, I've said this before, is I think that I think it's specifically Joanna, she knows so much, and that's her job. She works for Vanity Fair. She interviews these people. She knows about set stuff. She knows about casting. So I think when you do know stuff, when you do watch like all of the clips that they provide and all of this stuff, and we did this in Lost, and then you try not to have it incorporated into your ideas, it's impossible.
It's super impossible.
It's super impossible. And people are not that good liars, especially when you're on a podcast being casual. So I'm not saying that, if you saw the I didn't even ask Kim if you saw the preview. Maybe you did.
I did.
But
I did.
Okay, so now we know you probably spoiled it. It's a little.
I actually did not. You did not hear a single thing. Okay. Like nothing. That
I'm just kidding. I don't. I'm not. But that's the other thing. It's not like I'm going to hate you or something. It's just it's like you said. I don't have to. Yeah. Well, it's going to take a long time. It's going to sound weird. I'm just going to. Kim, can you just do like 100? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Axel.
Oh yeah, Axel.
Okay. Perfect. There you go.
No, the preview couldn't even give answers to any of our theories.
Yeah.
So we're not even close.
Yeah, I found, I mean, the best previews of all time were Mad Men. I don't know if you guys watch Mad Men, but it would be like, hello, and a door would open, a door would close, a light would turn on. And it would be like, they used to make jokes about it because they didn't want, he hated, Matthew Weiner hated like giving out any details. But anyway, long story short, I don't think Reddit or ideas is spoilers. I think spoilers is like facts from the show, set visits. People watched the episode before it was released, but that's why like Bald Move did Game of Thrones season 1, and then they talk about it like they never saw it, and then they do a part at the end where they talked about it like they had seen it. But if you had seen the show and you listened to them talk about it, they were kind of making allusions to, they were trying not to, but I'm just saying it's like, it's kind of, you'd have to be a host is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah. You really can't.
You can't do it.
Free think when you know something is going to happen.
It's good. You're right, because you're going to use that cornerstone, that idea, that photo you saw. You know what I mean? So, but it's all
It's just
fun.
beyond me how you can not, but like, stay off Reddit. Just, I mean, I was slow to catch up to this show. 5 episodes in, and I did not see a single thing about Westworld.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Why you make it so hard on yourself?
I don't even use
away
that
from Reddit.
website because they spelled Reddit wrong.
Yeah, that's true. They did. You know what I think it would be? I'd love to if there was a Reddit and they disabled comments. That would be that's like it takes whenever you read something, there'll be like this serious article and then someone will just say like blurp and then the next 50 replies are like bebop boo boo and it just descends. So it's like if DJ Tim Hines was doing all the commenting.
Oh.
Love you, baby. All right. Let's wrap it up. Okay. Any final predictions? Just things you want to shout out? Kim.
I feel like the hosts, I just feel very bad for them. That's all I gotta say. Every time I watch it, I know some people don't have an emotional connection to the host yet for some strange reason, but I just honestly feel terrible for the hosts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they are not free. They are just being used. It is pretty terrible. DJ Tim Hines.
Oh boy. I don't have anything else to say. We were on the initial reaction. We did this. I got a lot of stuff out there. I want to say thanks to Kim. That was awesome that you came and joined us. I also shout out to the Westworld Theorycast Facebook group because it's been getting like I'm almost sad that it's coming to an end because it's picked up so much steam in the last 5 episodes that there's a lot of people contributing and writing stuff and replying and commenting, and I love it. I'm really grateful for that, and I'm happy we're doing this. Thank you, Axel, for making that happen.
Awesome. Yes. Well, thank you again, Kim, for coming on. Thank you, DJ, for coming on. Thank you, Axel, for being me. And I appreciate everyone listening. Give us some iTunes review. I want to try to hit 50. That would be awesome. Tell everybody, tell your friends. I'm really most fascinated to see how we are sitting here a week from now speculating on season 2. Because I just want to see, are we going to be happy and say, wow, they really wrapped this up and propelled us into a whole new story? Or are we going to be like, why didn't they just tell us MIB was William? Why didn't they, you know what I mean? Like, are we still going to kind of be asking a lot of the same questions going into next season? And also I'm interested to see, does anybody die? I think, Kim, you thought that Ford might not make it out. Does MIB make it out? If there are 2 timelines, are we going to continue with both of them? Are we going to lose William? If it is MIB. So I don't know. I think they have a lot of directions. And I kind of think, even though it sounds crazy, I kind of like that future world idea, DJ Tim Hines.
Yeah, baby.
I kind of like it. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Westworld DVR on Twitter. Westworld Theorycast, our Facebook group, westworlddvr@gmail.com. Thank you all so much. Thank you also very much to Tom, UK Designer. Tom _UK _designer for our awesome logo. I think that has brought a lot of people in. I look at it all the time and people say, what an awesome logo. I love it. Check us out on YouTube. YouTube, baby. We're hip. We're happening. And also, don't forget to say howdy to your mom for me.
Oh.
All right, that was awesome.